little bit of news today with the Cardinals in terms of some roster stuff. Aaron Brooks was moved to the 40-man, which is, I think, kind of a big deal. Obviously, that puts him in position to be plugged in whenever they feel they need him. But what are your thoughts on Aaron Brooks in terms of what you've seen and, what people are saying about him down there?
He's had 8 strikeouts in 5 innings, no walks. The other day, he got touched up for a couple runs in St. Lucie against the Mets. And a couple innings later, or maybe it was against Houston. It was against Houston, I think, down in West Palm Beach. And Bregman got him for a double, and somebody hit a home run off him. And then a couple innings later, he got the same guys out. He was still in the game, so that was a good bounce back by him. Clearly throws strikes, and he can get ground balls too, I think. I don't know. They're so they don't really have a handle on that fifth starter yet. Verhagen pitched pretty well today, allowed a couple home runs, but was around the strike zone all the time. And then Woodford's in the mix, and Brooks. There's probably 3 guys that would be competing for that spot with, of course, Flaherty, who's not a fifth starter, but he was one of the 5. Flaherty out for another month or so. And Liberatore will surely go to Memphis. So those 3 guys are the ones. And I don't know how it's going to work out. Verhagen probably is the favorite because he has a 2-year contract and looked pretty good today. But Brooks will get some more time.
Yeah, I think Verhagen's obviously was a legit signing. I mean, he pitched in the big leagues mostly for Detroit, but I think that time in Korea, I always get those guys mixed up. Which Brooks and him, which one was in Korea, which one in Japan.
Verhagen pitched in Japan the last couple of years, and Brooks was in Korea.
And just reading, some Twitter and reading STL today, I guess Verhagen, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like that curveball of his is a pretty impressive pitch.
Yeah, curveball and slider both have impressed manager Marmol, and he's now working on a four-seamer and a changeup to kind of keep left-handers at bay. Left-handers have had more success against him than right-handers. So we'll see where that goes. It was 3 innings today, pretty good. One home run got up in the wind a little bit, but it was tagged, and another home run went over the center field wall, and that was legitimate.
One guy I wanted to talk to you about is that, there's an obsession, as you know, over Paul DeJong, and it's always proceed with caution in terms of spring training stats, both ways, whether someone's struggling or doing really well. But however, I've read notes where his exit velocity is really high, and, he had another good game today. He's 4 for 10. What are you thinking about him?
He looks different. He looks more confident. You could see him last year kind of feeling for it. He would take a strike, and then he'd swing at a ball that they shouldn't swing at. Now he's swinging at balls that he should swing at, and he's hitting the inside pitch on his hands to right field if he has to, or pulling the ball if he wants to. And it's been very impressive. His other at bat today, 2 hits today, was a double play ball, but it was hit, kind of sharply. And he's putting the bat on the ball, and I think between Sosa and him, DeJong has always been the more reliable defender. Sosa had shown he could hit for maybe a better average if he played on a long-term basis, but DeJong probably has more power and is the better player. It's his, as Marmol said, it's his job to lose.
The way both of those guys play defense. I mean, I've talked about this a little bit. There's a lot of value in the way they play defense, the two of them. And then last year, if you factor Sosa's offense in there, and DeJong, some of the stuff he did on offense, they were only, if you go by OPS plus or whatever, they're only like 2 or 3% below average as a group of shortstops. So if you got a defense that good and the offense of the position's just a little bit below average, as I've said before, I don't really see what the crisis is myself. If those guys were not good fielders, then it's a big problem. But they're both really good fielders. So you can live with slightly below average offense.
Well, the last time Trevor Story made the All-Star team was 2019. The other shortstop in that game was Paul DeJong. So that, Story's been better since then, but he wasn't exactly lighting it up last year. As far as that OPS, Sosa being hit 17 times helped that a little bit, but still.
It sure did. Good point, my friend. Good point. just give us your thoughts on this. Like, if DeJong's an above-average hitter, not a superstar, but above-average hitter, kind of reverses this trend he's been on. What does that mean for the Cardinals lineup?
Well, if he's above average, he could hit fifth where they intended to hit him when they picked up Arenado. They intended to have Carlson hit at the top of the lineup. Now, he led off today, and he had a hit in 3 at-bats, and I think he will continue to bat up there with some regularity as they see whether Edman or Carlson's the best fit up there. Carlson could hit fifth, as he did last year when they made their big run. He was batting fifth in that lineup. They won 17 in a row. But DeJong could hit there. Now, the problem with that is you have 4 right-handed batters in a row if you do that. If you lead off with Carlson, then you have 4 right-handers in a row, and then you have maybe Dickerson. So Dickerson would probably, as a DH, be hitting fifth, and DeJong would be hitting sixth. But I'd like to see DeJong hit, I don't think he's a 7 or 8 hitter or even 9. I think if he's going to maximize his power and his ability, he needs to hit in the top 6. And like hockey forwards, I guess, be in the top 6. But that involves Carlson leading off. And I don't know if I like that or not. He didn't steal any bases, but then only Edman really stole a lot of bases for them last year. So
right.
That's something to look at the next couple of weeks. But DeJong could hit 5 or 6. You have to have Molina in there somewhere too, and Bader might be your 9 guy. He had a big day today also, but he's got speed and is a much better hitter than he had shown for most of his previous career here. You can't have Molina batting 9th. That gums up the whole operation if you do that. He's going to have to hit 6 or 7 himself. But DeJong could hit on the top 6 if he's back to form. Now, there are ways to go here yet, and there'll be an interesting deal on Sunday. I don't know how many guys are going to St. Lucie to play the Mets, but Molina's going. He's going to make his debut that day, and not only is Jacob deGrom pitching, but so is Max Scherzer.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to. I hope that one's on. I hope Danny Mack and Bally's on that one.
I think the Metropolitans have a telecast on, and I think MLB might be picking that up too. But
well, with the package I have with satellite, I can get that Mets channel, so I'll have to make sure to, because I was watching it last week. I think it was last week when they
last Sunday when they were up there. Yeah,
those guys are fun to listen to, even in spring training. Keith Hernandez and Darling and
I went over and said hi to him last week, and Gary Cohen.
Yeah, that's a heck of a crew right there. That really is
wonderful.
Let me ask you this about lineups constructions with the DH and all this stuff. What about a thing where like a Tommy Edman would bat 9th, not because he's a bad hitter, but because you could go with what some of these managers have liked to play with, kind of like a double leadoff concept, where Edman, when the lineup's just about to turn over, you got him in front of Carlson, and then Goldschmidt, Arenado, and whoever, and O'Neill. So what about the double leadoff guy concept?
Well, I'm okay with that. And then the key is getting guys on for Goldschmidt, and he's going to hit second. So at the start of the game, if Carlson's your better on-base percentage guy, well, you got to go with him, I guess. And then when it rolls around and Carlson's no longer the leadoff guy, Edman would bat 9th and Carlson first. I could see that.
Yeah.
And you'd have Bader 8th and Molina 7th and DeJong 6th if you go up in reverse order there, and have Dickerson, let's say, 5. I'm not sold on Dickerson as 5, but I'm just trying to break up all those right-handed hitters.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because sometimes those things are proposed and they don't make a lot of sense. But I think actually the Cardinals have the personnel that would make it feasible, And if Ali Marmol is so, and I believe that he is, he's one of these guys who's willing to try different things. I wouldn't be surprised if they fiddle around with that, because it might make sense. So it'll be,
Well, I wouldn't either. It's all kind of new territory for us. There was the DH, sort of imposed upon us for 60 games in 2020, but that wasn't long enough to figure out what the heck to do with it. Brad Miller did a lot of the DHing, and he was pretty good at it. And then he had to play more because guys who had COVID or were hurt or had both, and he was overused.
Yeah, he wasn't very good in the field, that's for sure. Since you mentioned Dickerson, you and I didn't have a chance to gab about that last week. So what did you think of the signing, and how do you see them using him, and how prominent do you think he'll be in the DH group there?
Well, I haven't seen much power out of him yet, but he's only had a couple games where he's played. He makes contact. Now, today they signed Corey Spangenberg, who's knocked around with San Diego and Milwaukee, and is kind of like Brendan Donovan is as far as being able to play 4 or 5 positions. And but he's another guy in the mix. You have Spangenberg, you have Dickerson, you have Nootbaar, and you have Donovan, and then you have Gorman. You have 5 left-handed hitters all of a sudden, and they aren't all going to be on the club. Maybe just 3 of them when they go north. And Gorman looks to me as if he will not be one of them. There's some time yet, but he's 2 for 16, and he looks as if he's just trying to get it all back in one swing today. And he had another hitless game again today where he had a chance. He had 3-1 pitch, a chance to do something, and he didn't.
And that makes sense to actually put him down in Memphis anyway. He could use some more time there. What are your impressions of Juan Yepes, who can hit? I don't know about the rest of it.
He looks a little stiff, I guess, at first base. He played the outfield the other day, and he played that cautiously. So I don't know. And I haven't seen him really rocket a whole lot of balls off his bat either. I guess we'll see more of him as we go along. It's but Golds, in this short time frame, you have to make sure your stars get their at bats. The other guys are going to have to get them wherever they can. But it's time for, as it was today, all those starters got 3 at bats today, and I'm sure they'll get 3 at bats tomorrow. And maybe they'll some of those guys won't go up to St. Lucie on Sunday. But then there's another game against Houston. Verlander again, I think, is pitching on Monday, and get 3 or 4 at bats there, and Yepes and some of those other guys. Unless they have a B game or 2, and I think there's one scheduled for Monday, where those guys are not going to get enough at bats to be as sharp as you'd like them to be off the bench. At least they have in Dickerson and maybe even Spangenberg, who has a non-roster invite here. They have some veteran bench guys. I wasn't too keen on having all rookies, including Nootbaar, as my bench.
Yeah, I hear you, Commish. A little more than 2 weeks to go before this whole thing starts for real, and so it's time to kind of maybe make more serious assessments of the roster situation. But if you would say that, what would be your number one concern with how things stand right now? I mean, subject to change, of course. But as you and I have our conversation today, what's your top concern?
Oh, pitching. I don't know. I mean, Miklasz has been good. Hudson has been good. Wainwright's been good. Matz has been pretty good, but some of these guys have to be better than good. You're taking on, you go into a series with the Brewers, and those 3 or 4 guys they run out there, that's better than what the Cardinals can run out there right now. And the Cardinals have the better offense and the better defense. The defense is not a concern at all, and the offense really isn't either, because they can run the same guys out there that they played last year with, except change the shortstop with DeJong having the job back from Sosa. Everybody else is the same. And and their bullpen is iffy too. Gallegos hasn't thrown yet. He should be pitching in a game tomorrow, I would think. And Helsley had his first outing today and looked good, but he's going to have to, pitch more than just 1 inning before they use the start of the season. Hicks is kind of the wild card here. He's been throwing side sessions. He threw a face hitters today, and or in the bullpen rather, and he's back in the bullpen mix. That stuff about him starting is not happening because this spring training is not long enough to give him innings to do that. And with Reyes being on the 60-day DL now, or IL, I should say, Hicks needs to get some innings in where he might be with the club when the season starts, and that's something to look forward to because they're a little short out there. They got some other guys that have been good in the bullpen. Cabrera's velocity was down noticeably today, but Marmol wasn't worried about it so much. But we'll have to see what happens to him the next time he pitches. And there's a couple other guys who've been all right, but I think their pitching is just okay right now.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it too. For whatever that's worth, it's a lot of open-ended questions. I wanted to ask you, because you referenced the manager a couple times. Like, what are your impressions of him? I mean, it's a whole new job, a whole new role, and whole new responsibilities. How do you think he's handling things down there?
I think very well. He's got a good sense of humor too. He threw me like a high lob today in tennis today. He said he was watching Hicks play and pitch, and he says, I didn't want to get in the box against him. I said, well, there's a lot of guys you didn't want to get in the box against him. He said, as soon as I said that, I knew I was in trouble.
That's a good sign, man. The best Cardinals managers have always had a good sense of humor, including La Russa, he had a very underrated sense of humor, a lot of self-deprecation. I thought he was great. People saw him as grumpy, but at times he was, but he was a pretty funny guy, actually, and
all it took was, when he was getting honest, he just had to throw that 199 career average at him, and that shut him up, and he would say, "Oh."
Hey, do you? I haven't thrown you any curveballs. I'll do it now. You have any thoughts about? We got one half of the Sweet 16 left, but I don't know if there's any pools going on down there. I'm just trying to. I'm an inquiring mind, just wondering what you're thinking.
Well, there are. I've turned to action this year.
Who do you like? I mean, just to cut down the nets. I mean, at this point, who do you think's got the best shot at that? And I know we're kind of in between here because the second half of the Sweet 16 is still playing. But what do you think?
Well, I think a team that almost nobody talks about is Kansas.
There you go.
They've had an easy ride so far. I mean, Creighton gave them a decent game last week, but they had Texas Southern was their first game. Wasn't any cause for concern, and they should beat Providence tonight. It'll be a decent game, and then they played Iowa State a zillion times over the years. If they happen to win, or Miami's not going to beat them, and suddenly they're in the Final Four, and these other teams are not number one seeds that they're going to be going in the Final Four with. I mean, Villanova's a 2 if they get there. Houston's a 4. Duke's a 2. UCLA's a 4. Arkansas is a 4. So Kansas is the best club of all those teams. Now that you've lost Gonzaga and Arizona and Baylor before that, and they're just kind of usually you don't see Kansas just kind of lying in the weeds, but there they are. They're good.
I really love the way Houston plays, man. They can. That's a really dangerous team, as Arizona found out, and so I'm not saying they're going to cut the nets down at the end of the season, but they got a shot too. They definitely got a shot. One other thing, you must
how to beat that press there.
Oh yeah,
that little guy in the backcourt got trapped there twice in a row and threw it up there like he was throwing up a trial balloon.
One more question, and you're going to have to correct me because I can never remember the relationship is the professional relationship, but you must be very proud and happy for your former supervising officer in the United States Army, that would be Mike Krzyzewski, of course. Tell us that story real quick.
Well, I was already out at Fort Carson, Colorado, at the division unit, and Lieutenant Krzyzewski, as I first called him, was assigned there after one of his responsibilities in his 5-year hitch with the Army. His first year was a graduate assistant to Bob Knight at West Point, and then he was assigned out there. And he was going to be the player coach for the division basketball team, which did win the division championship, 8th division championship, or 5th division, excuse me. And I was calling him Lieutenant this and Lieutenant that, and he said, look, one day he says, why don't I just call you Rick and you call me Mike, and that'll be it. That's the West Point guys never say stuff like that. But during that time, I got to cover, I think probably the only guy to have done this, I got to cover him playing for Fort Carson and Greg Popovich playing for the Air Force. He was a student at the Air Force Academy, and he was a 3-point shooter before they counted 3.
That's exceptional. Yeah, I mean that's really exceptional. I forgot about the Popovich factor. So, yeah, I mean, Popovich is on the short list of the greatest NBA coaches of all time, and I think you certainly make the case, and I'm being conservative
I think he's
here.
The greatest. I mean, look at the stable of coaches he's produced. I mean, the guy from Boston is one of his guys, and so is the guy from Memphis. And two of the best teams in the league.
Steve Kerr, another one, right?
Steve Kerr, yeah, right. And
he kind of rehabbed Quinn Snyder, who's a hell of a coach for Utah. Like, Quinn Snyder owes a lot to him for, sort of having faith in him and working with him and teaching him how to be a better coach. I mean, I think Popovich is amazing. And Coach K.
I will tell you one more thing about Coach K, though. I hadn't seen him for many years. In 1994, I was going to cover Illinois and Duke for the Post-Dispatch. I wanted to talk to him when the Duke SID said, well, we have this conference call Tuesday or Wednesday, and he can talk to you then. So we get on the conference call. There's writers from Chicago and Springfield and all the other, Decatur and whatever. We introduced ourselves, and I introduced myself. It's Rick Hummel from the Post-Dispatch. He says, hold on, he says, before this goes any farther, he says, I was in the Army with Hummel, and it was not exactly a Green Beret.
Classic.
I didn't have anything to say to that. Because he's right.
Good sense of humor. But he never Jason Tatum was telling a story about, they laugh at it now, but one day he got so mad at those players when Tatum was the only year he was there that he was glaring at him like in a timeout, and he sort of clenched his teeth the way Krzyzewski does, and he was looking them all in the eye, and he's just like, you know what? He says, I hate all of your faces. So he never told you that, I hope, right?
No, he's not.
Well, Commish, I love the Commish's story, so I'm glad that we got into that today. That was fun. And what a way to end the conversation. And, well, for me anyway, heading into the weekend. So I love talking to you, brother. So thanks so much.
Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.
All right, take care. That's our really good friend there, Rick Hummel, who is one of a kind. And, Jim, I don't know whether I have strayed beyond the timing boundaries here, but
we're good.
Okay,
we got the commission. We're good. I love that story. I learned something because I did not know the relationship there between Coach K and Commish.
Commish would, he was Commish's lieutenant. I mean, I just think, and then I never knew about the Popovich thing.
That is awesome.
I know Commish has got stories, just like, Muhammad Ali asking him to read a speech that he was going to give.
Yes.
And, says, can you do me a favor and read this and tell me what you think? He's got all the, Lieutenant Krzyzewski telling him, listen, just you call me Mike, I'll call you Rick, and that'll be fine. So it's just priceless stuff. So he's
that is awesome.
He's been through a lot. Well, that's probably going to do it for it. Well, anything else to get in?
I don't
think so.
We have everything in. At least games tonight are going to be fun. That's all I know. I'm
looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And before I go, I'd like to say that I won't be in Monday, although I do believe you'll hear from me anyway, because Will Leach and I will be recording a new Seeing Red, and at least part of when Jim Hewer's helping me out because I have to do something Monday. You'll probably hear a lot of Seeing Red, the podcast.
Yeah.
You'll be able to hear it on the radio. So I won't be there physically, but at least there's some Seeing Red that I can leave behind, knowing that I'm going to be missing Monday. But I'll be back live with the Bernie Show on Tuesday at 3:00. So I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and thanks as always to listening. I appreciate all of you very, very much. And Jim, have a beautiful weekend. Same to you.